So, hi everyone, once more. Have a hope are you hearing us well? If you're hearing us well, can you please paste plus in the chat? It will be support us to understand if everything is fine. And at the same time, I will do the intro of our awesome Tobias. So Tobias Thyberg is a career diplomat and served as ambassador of Sweden to Afghanistan until August 2019. His previous diplomatic positions also include Swedish missions in New Delhi, Moscow, Washington, as well as the Swedish representation to the European Union in Brussels and the delegation of the European Union to Tbilisi. So that's a long CV of Tobias, and so it will be interesting to hear a little bit about your take on things and how Sweden participates in the Ukrainian tech market. So now it's your time, Tobias. So, and I'm muting myself.
Thank you so much, Olga. I'm really happy to be here at today's presentation. Ukrainian tech opportunities for Swedish business and for European business, I think, is a big untold story. And I would like to say a few words about what the Swedish government is doing in the field of IT and technology in Ukraine. First of all, I'd like to talk about the ongoing decentralization reform in Ukraine. Ukraine has been carrying out a far-reaching decentralization reform ever since the late 90s, and Sweden has been supporting it. The core purpose of the reform is essentially to bring government closer to citizens. Now, one really central leg of decentralization in Ukraine is the digitization of public services, and this is an area that Sweden has been supporting for many years. And I'd like to point to two things that we're doing in this field. First of all, is something called Trembita. Trembita is a traditional Ukrainian instrument. It's a wooden trumpet which is used to communicate across large distances in the Carpathian Mountains in Western Ukraine. Now, what the Trembita project does is essentially to provide one-stop shop for hundreds of different public services in Ukraine that used previously to be scattered on different servers and databases across different parts of the Ukrainian administration. And these databases and these services weren't really communicating with each other, which made life extremely cumbersome and difficult for citizens in their interactions with the general public. So what the Trembita system is about is essentially to create means of communication interaction between lots of different public services in Ukraine. And the system is currently combining more than 70 different public services in Ukraine. And I think for anyone who has lived in a post-Soviet country and experienced the effects of a highly decentralized and not very user-friendly government services will realize what a transformative effect this can have for the daily lives of Ukrainians. The second big sort of digitization project that we've been strongly supporting from the Swedish side is called VULIK. VULIK is Ukrainian for beehive, and its purpose is essentially to digitize and automate services in the interface between public officials and Ukrainian citizens. This is happening across a large number of so-called administrative service centers, which are available all across the country in Ukraine and are currently being built up. VULIK basically is the system through which Ukrainian public officials will have the tools to provide public services to Ukrainian citizens. And it's the second big project in digitization that Sweden is supporting. In this context, I'd like to say a few words about the political environment we find ourselves in. Both the Trembita and the VULIK system started before the elections of 2019 that brought President Zelensky and his team to power. But I have to say that since the entry onto the stage of the current Ukrainian leadership, we've really received an injection of energy and enthusiasm into this work, very much thanks to the efforts of Deputy Prime Minister for Digital Transformation, Mikhailo Fyodorov, and his really impressive team. Because what's happened is that the reforms that Sweden and other partners have been contributing to in previous times have now been combined with a truly visionary flagship project of the Ukrainian government called State in a Smartphone, which sort of takes the idea of citizen-friendly, user-friendly public services one step further. And we're now integrating our support with the vision of the Ukrainian government. And it's something which I'm really, really excited about. So we're extremely happy about our cooperation with the Ukrainian government in this area. The second leg, if you will, of Swedish support to the development of the IT and tech sectors in Ukraine is not about public service and decentralization, it's about human capital. I think many people are well aware of the fact that Ukraine is a country which has an extremely impressive resource base when it comes to STEM subjects, so that's science, technology, and maths. And what that means is that the marginal investment necessary to transfer that human capital into a recruitment base for IT and tech companies is astonishingly small in a country like Ukraine. You don't have to do a lot in order to have a pretty big impact on the Ukrainian market for tech and IT professionals. And that's where our second support comes in. It's through a project that we're doing together with a Swedish IT company, Beetroot, and it's called Beetroot Academy. It's essentially a set of tech and IT schools which have been established. They're currently available in 10 cities right across Ukraine, from the very far east of the country to the very far west of the country. And one of the interesting things I think about the Beetroot Academies is that they're concentrating on second and third tier Ukrainian cities, which typically aren't as well served by publicly funded alternatives as the big cities in the country are. And I'm sure that others at today's meeting can talk more about the effects of this project, but my impression is that the transformative effect of these trainings to a large number of Ukrainian students who already have the tools to quickly learn what it takes to become a really effective tech professional has been quite profound. So these are sort of the two main areas where Sweden as a donor is working to contribute to the development of the Ukrainian tech sector. I'd like to finish off with just a few reflections about the business relations. Now, my impression, I often get phone calls from potential Swedish investors who are looking at the Ukrainian market, and my impression is that the advantages of Ukraine as a tech economy in Europe are beginning to be pretty well known, at least among those within the Swedish business community who work with tech. There is an awareness of the impressive human capital in Ukraine. There's also, I think, an appreciation of the both geographic and cultural closeness between Sweden and Ukraine. The favorable tax environment for tech professionals is slowly beginning to become more known in Sweden. And of course, salaries are still competitive in Ukraine, even if I understand from my contacts with business colleagues that there is an upward pressure on salaries. However, it's pretty clear to me that the Ukrainian story at large still remains pretty untold in Sweden. There's not a sufficient awareness of what Ukraine has to offer as a tech hub in Europe. And so that's something that the Swedish embassy is going to be working more on in 2021 after the summer, when hopefully conditions allow us to work a little bit more in hybrid formats that allow a little bit more of actual human interaction. We intend to organize a business forum, one of the main purposes of which is going to be to highlight specifically the tech opportunities for Swedish business in Ukraine. And I think events like the one that is being organized today is really hugely important in terms of telling that story. So with very big thanks to the organizers of today's event, I'm really looking forward to following the discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you, dear Tobias. It was awesome presentation. And for now, we have any questions in our chat. I will just share a small reminder for our attendees. So you can just leave your comments during the speaker speech. And we will collect them, and the speaker will answer on it directly under the question after the pitch. So, and now it's time for the questions, Tobias. We have a few questions for you for now. Probably you can answer on it on the first one. What are your expectations on regional stability moving forward for now? What you can say about it?
Thank you. Thanks a lot, Olga. If by regional stability you mean stability in the Ukrainian regions, then I would say that the conflict in Ukraine, which is the result of Russia's annexation of Crimea and its aggression against eastern Ukraine, I think that that's a situation which will remain with Ukraine for the foreseeable future. I don't see prospects that there will be a political solution to that conflict anytime soon. But I think what the 7 last years have demonstrated in an impressive way is that Ukraine has an amazing ability and resilience to nurture its own economic and social development while at the same time managing the ongoing armed conflict in eastern Ukraine. And although the conflict remains a huge problem for Ukraine, both politically and I believe economically, nevertheless, my conversations with investors that are already in the Ukrainian market tell me that this is not a key concern for investors in Ukraine today. However, I do believe that it's something which deters future investors, and I think that is a problem.
So much, Tobias. I think we have a few more questions, but we will leave them for our panel discussion that we will have at 5 p.m. time, ET time. So, and now it's time to represent the second speaker and moving forward. Thank you so much, Tobias, and see you on the panel discussion. So thank you. And